This conference will now be recorded.
We're going to start here in about 1 minute. 1 minute to game time. Okay. Oh, sorry. I move to call the Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission meeting to order for June 21st, 2023. And first on the agenda would be a roll call.
Jackson Bogan, Larry Leverins, Carla Snodgrass, Gary Schroeder,
Present.
Jerry Reynolds,
Present.
Greg Jones, Bob Metzger, Diana Looper, Vicki Pearl,
Here.
Michelle Dennis, Tom Murtaugh,
Present.
Perry Brown, Tracy Brown,
Present.
Jason Domkowski,
Present.
Lisa Dullum, Kathy Parker,
Here.
Jody Hamilton,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. Briefing session.
All right. All cases are ready to be heard except Z2894 Munoz and Z2896 Kittle. They have not checked in yet, so I would ask if there's representatives for those cases here with paperwork to please come to our desk over here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Next, we'll have approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the May 17th, 2023 public hearing as submitted.
I second.
Any questions, comments, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. New business. I'll take that first motion.
Sorry. I move to hear and vote on Resolution PD 23-01, Tippecanoe Acquisitions LLC, West Heights Condominium PD, Z2847.
I second.
Sorry, we're sorting paperwork issues. All right. So this is concerning Z2847, Tippecanoe Acquisitions, the West Heights Condominium Plan Development. This was heard last year and approved by the county commissioners. The rezone action was approved in June of last year. The proposal is current conditions of the site. Proposal is 158 condominium units designed in a townhouse style. These are two-story units. And then there are associated parking areas as well as some open space environments as well. The submission you have before you is the construction plans only. They're not ready to final plat and go vertical yet. They wouldn't need to get all the infrastructure together. So this is just construction plans only, so there's no bonding being requested at this time. So with this approval and recordation, we have it scheduled tomorrow. They will be able to begin clearing, grading, infrastructure work, lay the pipes, do all that important work while the construction season's still ongoing. So, and then they would have to follow up with a final plat of the entire area for the condo association property, and then that would be the last action this body would take And then after that, they would do amended final plats for the individual condo units as they go. So that would be an administrative action done through us. So that's the process. Past that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we recommend approval of Resolution PD 2301.
Thank you, Ryan. Petitioner, the representative, have a presentation, please.
Just briefly, good evening. Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law, 250 Main Street, here on behalf of the petitioner. Appreciate staff and Ryan's assistance in this. We look forward to moving forward with the project and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody from the audience wish to comment on this? Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot.
We have a unanimous ballot for approval.
Thank you, Ryan. Ready to hear Monterey Apartments?
It's me.
Yeah.
I move to hear and vote on Resolution PD 23-02, Monterey Apartments LLC, Monterey Apartments PD Z 2851.
I second.
Motion is second. Ryan, please.
Okay, this is our next plan development that's moving to construction. This project was also heard last year and approved by the West Lafayette City Council in May of '22. The proposal is a 5-story apartment building containing a maximum of 68 units with 103 bedrooms and a ground floor parking facility. Here it is on Pierce Street, close to Wood. Final detailed plans have both construction plans and final plat, and bonding's already been submitted to our office. So once we record, which will likely be probably tomorrow, but we'll see, then they'll be cleared to basically break ground and get moving. So we are recommending approval of PD 2302. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does the petitioner representative have a presentation?
I'm Tom Gall with Integrate Build. We are prepared to move forward with the project as soon as we can turn all that stuff into the recorder. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any member of the audience wish to comment? Hearing none, questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, you have a yellow ballot.
We have a unanimous ballot for approval.
Thank you. Vicki.
I move to hear and vote on primary approval extension request for Purdue Research Park Phase 3, Part 2, S-4122.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff.
Good evening. Amanda Esposito, APC staff. The petitioner is requesting a third 2-year extension for the primary approval originally granted July 15th of 2009. Nothing significant has changed with this. They're merely asking for another extension, another two-year extension. This is, the preliminary plat for this was 17 lots on 95.43 acres and 3 outlots on the corner of Calbert and Jaeger. And happy to answer any questions. We're recommending approval.
Thank you. Petitioner, have any comments?
Good evening. My name is Marianne Owen. I'm from the law firm of Stewart and Brannigan at 300 Main Street. I'm here to answer any questions you might have because the staff report says it all.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to comment? Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot.
Call me out. You don't trust me. So much pressure.
We have a unanimous ballot for the extension.
Thank you. Thank you. Vicki?
I move to hear and vote on Resolution 2023-05.
I second.
Staff.
Good evening, David Hiddle with the Area Plan Commission. You have on page 31 of your packet the back page of the Area Plan Commission bylaws. We've talked in the past, in the last several months, about redoing our forms and applications to make them uniform and to consolidate several, get rid of some that are extraneous and making them more readable and usable for the user. Where our ultimate intent is to do the whole batch. We have not the whole batch here today, but we have a handful that we do want to get into circulation. So we're bringing 4 new forms. They follow page 31, so they're on page 32 through 35. And those would replace 7 forms that you can see struck out on page 31. Page 31, again, is the back page of the APC bylaws. Because the forms are listed in the bylaws, as we've noted, we think that we need to come to the Plan Commission with the bylaws amendment in order to make any changes. So this is the first change in what will be probably 2 more before we're done with them. We did finish all the BZA forms, and they've all been approved by the BZA, but now we're getting into the Plan Commission forms. So we just have 4 that we have here for your approval, and again, they replace a total of 7, which are those that are struck out on that page 31. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very good, thank you. We have anybody from the audience that wish to comment on this? Questions or comments from the board? Looks good. 4 is better than 7.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So we have a yellow ballot. No, we're on the APC.
Eric, is this a voice vote or a ballot for
Well,
bylaws
You
change?
could get away with a voice vote on this, but I think do we have an issued ballot for that? Do you have sufficient ballots that have been issued? I think people are already filling them out, but
You were the only one.
it's so much the better in writing.
There's a bylaw amendment, Resolution 2023-05. 04, okay.
See, I don't have that page.
Yeah, has everybody got the right number on there. It's at the very bottom of that page, kind of squeezed in, 2023-05.
Well, it looks like we have several resolutions, right? 4?
Yeah, I don't have, yeah, that's what
Do we have it on here?
I don't have an 05 on mine.
Page 30.
Yes.
Okay.
See, oh, wait a minute. This one here.
Yeah,
There it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Stuck together, I couldn't find it. But not this one, sorry.
13 ballots cast, all in favor.
Thank you. As we enter the public hearing portion of our meeting, I wish to read a statement. For those of you unfamiliar with our procedure, the Commission would like for you to know the following. When we hear requests to subdivide land, we're only concerned with whether the actual drawing showing the division into lots meets the technical requirements of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. Anybody wishing to make comments or provide us with information regarding any subdivision petition will be given an opportunity to do so. When we're hearing a request to change zoning, we're trying to determine if the new zone being requested and the uses allowed in that zone are appropriate to that property and support the comprehensive plan. With each case being heard, our staff will present its report. Then the person requesting the rezone will be given an opportunity to speak. Following that, those wishing to speak in favor of the rezone will be recognized. Then those who wish to oppose will have a turn. This will be your only time to speak. The person requesting the action will be allowed a rebuttal. Plan Commission members will then ask questions and finally vote. Please limit your statements to no more than 5 minutes. We ask that you not repeat what owners before you have already said. We are a 17-member body, and a majority of 17 is 9. Regardless of how many commissioners are actually present, at least 9 votes in favor or 9 votes against are required for an action to be official. If fewer than 9 of us agree to either approve or disapprove the action, the case must be heard again next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. Our vote on a request to rezone serves as a recommendation to the appropriate city council, town council, or county commissioners, who must ultimately decide changes in zoning. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address for the record. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting's in session. If you need to make a call, please step out of the room before using your phone. All exhibits presented to the commission become property of the commission. Vicki.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become a part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendation on the applications to be heard this evening, and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Now we're ready to hear Resolution 2023-04.
I move to hear and vote on Resolution 2023-04, West Lafayette Parks and Open Space Plan as amended by the Ordinance Committee on June 7th of 2023.
Okay, staff.
Thank you. This was heard first at the APC meeting last month, or the month before, rather, and then was forwarded to the Ordinance Committee. And they heard it, and now it's back to the Area Plan Commission for review and for recommendation, which will go on to the West Lafayette City Council. There were some procedural questions and some questions about the language in the subdivision ordinance and other documents that I'd like to address quickly. If there are some questions about how state code applies here, I think Eric might want to walk you through that a little bit, and Gary, you might want to talk about the path this has traveled to the Ordinance Committee. But I think one of the major talking points last month, or concern points, was how this plan relates and integrates to the subdivision control ordinances allowance for parks reservations. And there is a never used before clause, as Ryan mentioned last time, in the subdivision ordinance that allows the municipality, a jurisdiction, in this case it would be the city of West Lafayette, to identify a certain property, a parcel, area of land for eventual parks development, and then to essentially lock it up for 5 years while it tries to determine how to acquire it. That was discussed, but I think one of the nuances to that was missed is the fact that that language, that ability, only comes into play for property that is being actively subdivided. So that means, say there is a lot that is with something that the city of West Lafayette desires to make a park one day, they can't just go out, tab it, and say, okay, that's what we want to be a park. We're going to lock that up per the provisions of the subdivision ordinance and figure out a way to attain it and turn it into a public park. It's only applicable if that parcel, that subject parcel, is actively being subdivided. That's when the subdivision ordinance kicks in. Otherwise, it's not active at all. And I think something there that might be protective for the property owner, if that's the concern, is that property is not going to be the subject of a subdivision petition unless the property owner initiates it, or at least consents to it. So there would be no situation where that property owner has his land, which either known to him or unbeknownst to him is identified on a comprehensive plan, on the parks plan for eventual parks development, and is swooped up from under him or taken in a way for parks use unless he actively or she submits a subdivision application. That's what puts the subdivision ordinance in play, and that's when that clause could be activated. So I think that there may have been a fear last time, based on the comments, that this plan, which would identify certain parcels as ideal for parkland, which happens in parks plans, but is not always common, but it would identify certain parcels for parkland. I think there was a fear that just by passing of that as a component of the comprehensive plan, as an updated amendment to the comprehensive plan, then that makes that land susceptible to the whims of the jurisdiction. And that's just not the case. Again, it only would be put into play, if you will, if the owner of that parcel takes action to initiate some sort of subdivision application. So I hope that clears up a little bit of that particular concern. That language, I did some searching because I'd not encountered that language and that is in our subdivision ordinance before, and it does exist elsewhere. What I did is I just did some searches on certain key phrases to see if they turn up in other city ordinances, and they do. There's not a lot of them. There's a number of cities in Ohio that seems like it originated from. I imagine somehow the language worked its way to our subdivision ordinance in 1990 or whenever it was most recently overhauled, worked its way into our ordinance. So it's not a complete anomaly or an outlier that ordinance has that language. It's not common, but it does exist elsewhere. So does that clear up any of those questions as to the applicability of that parks reservation system? If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to help you out. I think Ryan probably knows it more intimately than me, but that seems to have been a little bit lost in the shuffle of the discussion last month.
Okay, thank you. We may have some questions. We'll hear from Eric, and unless anybody from the...
Actually, I do have one. So the reservation process, I understand that the property would have to go through the subdivision process for that to be valid, but would it also have to be annexed previous by that jurisdiction?
Maybe I'll jump in on that if you don't mind.
That'd be great.
I think that is the perfect question for the issue of inside city of West Lafayette, which this obviously contains a lot of that, but it also goes outside the city limits. And so the comprehensive plan that is before you covers both. And so the important thing to remember is that the city of West Lafayette can take all the votes they want about something in Canada, but it does nothing. The city of West Lafayette can take votes all day long about something in the county that's not incorporated, and it does nothing because they have no power outside of their jurisdictional limits, with very few exceptions. There's a 2-mile area that they can put wastewater and water and things of that nature, but not in this application. So, if the city of West Lafayette annexed an area, then that annexed area would come into the city with all of the rules and regulations that the rest of the city had. So that's the exact situation if the passage by the city of West Lafayette included property outside the city limits. It would not be effective until and unless that outside of the city property became part of the city by annexation. So, is that helpful? Both have to happen. That's correct. Otherwise, it has no impact.
It has to be annexed, and then it has to be go through the subdivision process in order for that reservation process to happen.
Because when an annexation occurs, the new jurisdiction, the city in this case, all their rules apply with the annexation. You don't have different tiers of people, oh, I was annexed in 1990, so my rules are different than somebody annexed in 2005. Everybody in the city has the same set of rules once they're annexed. The folks who've been there forever and the folks who just got annexed, all the rules are the same once they're annexed.
So I think I got one question, that it seems like as there's some development going on outside the city limits, if one of those parcels came up and was subdivided and it's identified as a park's possible reservation, it's in the county, then no action would be taken.
Yeah, there would be no action other than the fact someone might note, oh, look, this was passed by the city of West Lafayette. And my legal opinion would be, it would be nothing more than, oh, look at that, isn't that interesting? It would have no legal impact. Okay. It might be a conversation such as, hey, did you know they were thinking about maybe putting a park in there? What do you think of that? But there would be no power behind it. It, at most, would be a discussion opener.
And I'm sorry, Gary, can you repeat the question you asked?
I'll rephrase it.
Okay.
There's a parcel in the county that has been identified by the Parks Department, and that parcel now becomes developed, going through the subdivision process, but no action would be taken by the Plan Commission or the Parks Department to reserve that property. They could continue with their development as they see fit prior to any annexation.
I agree.
Fair statement? Okay.
I agree.
That does clear that up. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from Commission? Otherwise, public comment. Anybody wish?
Can we have a restatement of what the actual motion was coming out of the ordinance committee?
Okay.
If we've got that in writing, that would be fine, or I can restate it.
Go ahead if you've got it.
I believe that the ordinance committee took the following action as a recommendation to this body. So your ordinance committee recommended to you that this be passed on with no recommendation, and that it also remove any territory outside the West Lafayette jurisdictional limits. And I believe those were the two things that came out of ordinance, and the motion that was made now puts that exact same set of circumstances in front of you. Removes anything outside of the city of West Lafayette limits and passes on to the West Lafayette City Council with a no recommendation, as opposed to a yes or a no. It's none at all. I apologize, no recommendation doesn't sound good, does it? Without any recommendation. So you have yes, you have no, and you have without any. So I misstated that. Is that corrected enough to make up for my misstatement?
Say it one more time.
Well, I will. There's three things that you can do, and one is to vote to approve and to pass on a yes vote to the West Lafayette City Council. You could pass on a no vote to the West Lafayette City Council, or you could give no recommendation at all. So without a recommendation, those are the three options. And the option that you put in as a motion is without recommendation.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for clarifying that. And that came out of the ordinance. We had a pretty good public hearing. We had a lot of property owners from the county speak at that were unaware and were concerned about that, and that's the, seem to try to resolve that. That's the motion that we made, and that's the motion on the floor. With that being said, anybody from the public wish to speak to that?
Good evening, my name is Darren Sorensen, I live at Shrewsbury Drive.
Hit your button there, sir.
Pardon?
Hit the button down there and it'll turn on the red light. Thank
How
you.
about that? That better?
That's good.
Okay. You know, I am a real estate developer. I've been for 35 years in this county. I've developed over 40 subdivisions. And I look at that map, and all I can see is anybody that's got yellow, they're off of our list of somewhere we're going to try to develop. So you basically are putting a crosshair on people's property, saying that that, more than likely, will be a park at some point when it's West Lafayette. So I agree with I concur with the ordinance committee's recommendation to strike everything outside of West Lafayette boundaries, and also to start, and going forward in the future, contact the people that are going to be most affected by this, which are the property owners. Thank you.
Thank you. I might have a clarification, Darren, for your statement. I'll make sure I understand that if he has a subdivision in the county that he wants to develop that's identified, he can develop that as long as it's in the county. No action will be taken.
I agree with that.
So what you're saying, if it's in the county now, you can go ahead and develop. The opinion is that marking doesn't have any effect.
Well, I see some things that are in the county that I know are already developed, but they've already put trails and parks through them, and I don't know how that's going to happen when it's already owned by individuals.
You say the trails are already put through there?
They're on the map.
They're on the map, but they don't
In the
have-
county,
Yeah.
but again, so how does that work? There's not going to be any more development in that area, but there's a trail going right through the middle of a developed area.
I think what it says is it doesn't take effect until it's annexed. So they're trying to get out in front of the annexation, and so if you develop ahead of time, develop away, and that.
Yeah, but if you're also not developed and it actually
Then you get
gets to you,
annexed? Yeah.
and it gets annexed, then
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
Yes, yeah, I agree with that, yeah. Any other public comment?
Good evening. My name's Dennis Schlote. I live at 3751 Litchfield Place in West Lafayette. And I'm just a resident. I'm not a developer. I'm retired. But I do think it's important that the city and the area plan and the developers provide for, recreational area, green space for the people that are going to live in these homes that are being built. So I don't know how you get it done, but I do think it's important. And we're fortunate to live in a community that's growing rapidly, and we definitely need housing, but we need parks and recreational spaces for the people that are going to live in those houses. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? And then name and address, and then when you get done, just sign in over at the table, please.
Has the button already been pressed?
That's right, yes, it has. Sure.
Hi, I'm Caroline Kester. I live at 2100 Country Square Court. I'm the board secretary of Wabash Township Board, and I would like to speak in support of the plan. I think green spaces and park spaces are very important to the community. It also, for the developers who have some concerns, would raise the property values of this area because it allows people to have recreational programs, and it also helps people's mental health to be able to go out into green spaces, and it's very important, so I wanted to speak in support of it.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else, just sign in over there. Anyone else wishing to speak? We had someone else, I think.
Steve Ratcliffe, 401 East, 500 North, West Lafayette. mine parcel Connie and I have is in the city of West Lafayette. We are the last piece that they annexed back, I believe, in 99, 2000, when we agreed with Mayor Mills she needed our piece. At no time did she at that point say, you guys are going to become a park at some time. Snyder Engineering surveyed, and there are 11 lots, I believe, labeled as Lauren Lakes Development. I just read the addendum. I'm not sure how this affects us since we are in West Lafayette, but you know, at some point we're going to move the cow herd to another farm and we're going to develop those lots. What I want to know is, since we are in the city of West Lafayette, Snyder Engineering surveyed those back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Where do we fall with our approximately 12 acres that remains of our original farm, is what we're looking for. We have no problem with parks and like that, but nobody contacted us as we, at the executive committee, and we'd kind of like to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. You have a comment on that? It seems like if they've already subdivided, I think they're fine if it's been
I
recorded.
can't really get into that.
Yeah.
I can advise this body, but I can't advise him. There are several lawyers out in the audience, I notice, that might
Gotcha.
want to put their hand in the air.
You're right, Gary. If it's been subdivided, the action's taken place. So,
Thank you,
yeah.
Ryan. I asked the wrong person. So, anyone else wishing to speak?
Do I have to hit a button?
Nope, you're set to go. Just
My
name.
hands are like sweating.
Name and address.
Chelsea Schwab, I'm at 2716 Newman Road, West Lafayette. I'm technically the county, but we do everything in West Lafayette. As a parent of an almost 2-year-old, I think parks are vital. I will also say, as a parent of a 2-year-old with 2 friends in the audience, we go to Lafayette a lot for the parks because there's not a lot of spots for toddlers to play. So to me, stuff like this is just vital, and I think if we're going to keep saying that West Lafayette's a really great place, then we need to support the kids to have areas to grow and develop, and as, I don't remember the young lady's name said, like mental health, and I feel like it shouldn't be a conversation, so put parks in.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this?
Hi, Zoe Nissa, 329 Leslie Avenue, West Lafayette. And I'm speaking as a resident, but also somebody who's been engaged in research around parks and green space and conservation plans for the last 15 years or so. There's a very large, and I can submit a large body of documents that makes the case very clearly for private and public sector shared development and thinking about these as an integrated plan. In fact, there's been multiple surveys, so I'm a little surprised to hear that maybe real estate developers or something in this town are less excited about this, because actually they've done multiple national surveys, and even most private sector developers and investors agree that there's a really well-established business case for this, a health and social outcome case for it, and it actually sells properties. So. But what I really want to speak about is the importance of this kind of planning that does think ahead, right? So pre-annexation, it's thinking about the entire sort of portfolio or suite of green space, as those are going to be available to residents now, but also residents that want to move here. You know, I think something that the county's been thinking a lot about is how do we attract people to this area and keep them here after they graduate or move on. Green spaces, over and over again, and the research we do is actually one of the top items of concern once, you know, people have jobs and things like that. So, yeah, I could go on and on about flood control, health outcomes, social equity outcomes. There's a very, very large body of literature. But the key thing here is that it's done in an integrated and planned manner. The West Lafayette plan, to me, seems extremely well researched. They've engaged with a lot of stakeholders. They're committed to doing that in future, and I think the plan should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this?
Good evening. Kathy Lozano. I'm the Superintendent of Parks and Recreation for the City of West Lafayette. I want to thank you for considering this. Thank you for opening up these discussions and pointing out how we could have done this better. I just want you to know, as Parks and Recreation professionals, we want to be prepared to have healthy communities. We want to be prepared to have open green space for our residents, to attract good quality people to stay here and live here and want to play here. And that is what this plan is about. We're not about trying to take anyone's property away from them. We want to make a deal with them, and maybe their property might someday become a park, and wouldn't that be wonderful? We want to dream with them, and that's what this is about. It's about dreaming and connecting green spaces in our county and keeping people together. So thank you for considering this, and thank you for the discussion. It really has opened my eyes to a lot of things, so thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yep.
Evening, my name is Josh Teal. I live on 1535 Summit Drive in West Lafayette. I was in the military for about 21 years and traveled all over the world, and all the places I saw came back to West Lafayette, and that ties back into the brand, the city, the usability of the city. When I look forward to some things happening right now in West Lafayette, I think about our chips plant, I think about hypersonics, hundreds of millions of dollars pouring into the county. That's going to really drive up the demand for all the housing development, subdividing. That's a good thing for us. However, that demand is going to accelerate all those developments, and we've got to keep that in check, or at least keep it sustainable in the long term. So by putting this in place, it causes us to slow down and really think about where the subdivisions happen, work this into the process with the green space, because if we overdevelop or develop too fast without the green space, we lose the overall brand. We can bring all those people in, then they'll go out, tell everybody else, hey, the city isn't workable. Hey, it's not a green space city. It's not keeping pace with some of our neighboring cities and neighboring university towns for their green spaces, river spaces as well. So I think this helps the balance for a long-term brand, and the brand being sustainable as one of the best places in the world to live. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, please.
Brent Wills, 4115 Amesbury Drive. I'm here representing Coyote Crossing Golf Club. We are outside West Lafayette City proper. Part of our parcels are earmarked for this parks and trails. I'd like to state that we are all for green space. We maintain a lot of green space, provide outdoor activities. We don't really appreciate not being notified that our parcels were earmarked for these trails. There's 3 golf holes that are part of this plan that don't understand how you would take away part of our green space that we operate our business on, provide a lot of at least 50 people throughout the summer jobs, and this is not something that we would be behind as far as allowing a path or a park to be put on our property. So I would like to recommend that our APC follow the ordinance committee to take out anything outside West Lafayette proper, and that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Anthony Roth, 5233 Mays Drive. I live right next to one of the proposed paths, right next to the golf course, and I don't think I built my house expecting random people to be walking by my house. So we'd love to see that be diverted, or at least keep it on roadways. Going by my house onto the golf course is not something we would expect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Kirsten Goulet, 3433 Poland Hill Road, Lafayette. As everyone else said, I fully support our local government's plan to implement the green spaces and keep them going in our communities. Again, as someone with a young child, we benefit from these spaces greatly for a variety of reasons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak, please? Thank you. Oh, push the button again, and then it was on. Then now
All
you're
right,
on.
sorry.
It's on. Thank you.
Alexis Mashinat, 2217 Sandpiper Court North, West Lafayette. I am a ecologist and instructor at Purdue University. I teach a science communication course. I'm also a mother to a young child. and have 3 dogs. And we absolutely love living in West Lafayette because of all the parks and recreational spaces that are provided to us. As you heard from all the many speakers today, there are ample amounts of positive reasons to keep and maintain and to continue to plan to have these green spaces is essential for the sustainability of this area.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I am Lori Newhouse. I live at 5460 Bullock Court. I live in the same neighborhood as Mr. Roth. I personally am a runner, so I greatly appreciate the trail system throughout West Lafayette area and Tippecanoe County. That being said, 75 has turned into an unsafe road to run on. While I would love a running path that was close by, I do not think it is right to have it going through the back of my neighbor's yards. They did not plan for that when they bought that land, so would appreciate for that to be considered during the trail portion of this.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the board?
I have a quick question on our process here. And I say we, I mean the city of West Lafayette where I live, and a super user of the park system, by the way. Step off my property, I'm in Happy Hollow Park. How fortunate am I? But want to know if we've gone forward and communicated, maybe this is for our superintendent, to the property owners to let them know that while the initial wave, we didn't let them know that they might be affected by this plan, if we've taken some action to make sure that we've notified property owners.
Kathy Lozano again. Yes, that's the kind of what I'm saying here. We learned something from this process. This is a wishes and dreams plan. We have no intention right now, any of those yellow spaces, of turning them into parks tomorrow, next week, next year, maybe probably even 5 years or 10 years. I'm hoping that in 50 years we might see a quarter of them or half of them be parks. But maybe not them, maybe some other parcel. But we did learn that we should never, ever put someone's property on a map without contacting them first. So thank you for teaching us that lesson, and we will not do that again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So if this commission votes to send on the recommendation as it came out of ordinance, what are the options for the West Lafayette City Council?
You're a recommending body. No matter what comes from you is a recommendation in any form, any flavor. It's all a recommendation. And so the West Lafayette City Council is free to do anything that they find appropriate after taking into consideration what you have recommended to them. So all options are available and open for the city of West Lafayette. Your action, again, is a recommendation only, and they are to take it into consideration in their decision, but do not have to follow it.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, please.
I just have a question of, like it's a golf cart or a golf course. They own the land. If they're not going to subdivide it, then it's a moot point. They can't change anything because you own the land. And because if if you're going to subdivide it, then yeah, they can step in then. But if you don't subdivide it, they can't touch it.
That's correct.
Okay?
With regard to that subdivision, Parks Reservation.
Right.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment.
And at risk of putting Kathy on the spot, again, would the West Lafayette Parks Department be willing to support taking out the areas that are outside of the?
Well, we would prefer not, but if that is a way for you to feel more comfortable, we would support that. As I said, this is just a dream document. It is we looked at the possible connections and possible areas that were difficult to develop and might be parcels that, might be more amenable. Their property owners might be more amenable to making a deal with us to make that a park in the future. But we will not object if you prefer.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? The only other thing I'd like to say, at the ordinance committee meeting, no one there was opposed to park planning. They think that's a good plan, green space, they're in support of. It's just the process of locking up someone's property for 5 years, possibly locking up their property for 5 years when they're getting ready to develop it, and you just kind of put them in a holding pattern. I think that was the pretty much the objection to the plan. So that's why we recommended they take it out of the plan. So I just wanted to make that clear. Any other comments? Hearing none, we have a ballot. So the ordinance committee recommended to send it on as amended. Yeah.
Clear?
Yeah. A yes vote, yes. It would, that's a good question. What would a no vote mean?
So I would like to simplify us and get to the right result without getting overcomplicated. And the simplification is, you have a motion before you that says you are going to recommend, that you are going to make no recommendation whatsoever to the West Lafayette City Council, number one. It will not be a yes, it will not be a no, it will be without recommendation. So that's the first thing that the motion calls for. And the second thing that the motion calls for is that any real estate outside the city limits of West Lafayette will be excluded. So without worrying about what the ordinance committee did or didn't do, that is the motion before you, and I think that's a better way to set it up so there's no confusion about having an ordinance committee involved. You happen to be doing the same thing the ordinance committee recommended, but when you vote, you're going to vote in favor of sending it on without a recommendation, and you're going to send it on with the removal. So those are the two things you're sending on. So that would be an affirmative yes vote.
A yes vote says, I agree with what you just said.
Amen.
A no vote says, I disagree with
That is correct.
And we're kind of under a time frame, 60 days,
Yeah.
and we've already gone by one committee, so this is our really kind of only meeting to take action on this. Otherwise, we run out of time, not out of town, Freudian slip there. So we recommend a yes vote. The ordinance committee would recommend a yes vote to send this on as amended, so we can pass it on to West Lafayette and they can address it. That's our job, to have a public hearing, which we did do, aired out some issues, made some changes, and now we're ready to send it on.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay. So we have a yellow ballot.
13 ballots cast, 12 yes, 1 no.
Very good, thank you, David. Vicki, we're ready to hear 5134.
I move to hear and vote on S 5134 Concord Crossing North, major preliminary.
I second.
Thank you. David.
Thank you. This is a preliminary plat approval for a multifamily subdivision known as Concord Crossing North. This parcel was the subject of a rezoning in 2019 that rezoned it to R3, which is our multifamily designation. Here you see the site, an aerial photo, and then close up, and then the site plan. What's proposed is 808 units total on 70-plus acres in a number of buildings, multifamily buildings. This is the southeast side of Lafayette, just outside the, what you might call the industrial mega area. You can see here, I-3, purple zoning is industrial, and this is all industrial, kind of straddling Interstate 65 on the southeast side of town. So it makes pretty good sense to have major employment centers served by multifamily, which is what this would do. This is, again, it's already zoned properly. So this is an approval of the subdivision plat. And there is also a variance involved, which was recommended for approval last night by the Lafayette Board of Works, and which would be also a ballot item here today for the Plan Commission. Staff is favorable towards this. It does meet all the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance, subject to the conditions that are included in the staff report. And we would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very good. Do we have some variances on this we have to vote on?
Yeah, there's one variance.
Okay.
Having to do with Concord Road. It's being improved already, so requiring the ordinance's improvements of the developer would sort of be redundant because it's already a project in the works. So again, as a subdivision variance, it was approved last night by the City Lafayette Board of Works, but I understand it's ultimately approved as well by the Plan Commission. That's, I think, had been the course of action. Eric, you have a stunned look on your face.
I don't see, there's no harm in voting on it.
Okay.
However, I believe the Board of Work action is the final word on that, is it not?
That's what I thought, but this also happened recently in the last year or so, and the
Okay.
Plan Commission voted as well.
All right, and their board action was to approve?
Favorable.
Favorable.
Yes, that was last night.
We have a ballot.
Yeah.
We might as well vote it and everything will be
You almost
tied
have a
up.
recommendation already.
Yes, yeah, in the city, yeah. So petitioner, the representative.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Williams, engineer and surveyor with T-Bird Design Services, 105 North 10th, Lafayette. We agree with all staff's comments and conditions. I'm here to answer any questions you might have, and we respectfully request conditional preliminary approval.
Very good, thank you. Anybody from the audience wish to speak to this? Questions or comments from the board? Oh, we have someone coming. Thank you, thank you.
Behind the pillar.
Yeah.
I'm Randy Brist, excuse me, 4277 Tripoli Drive. I guess my comment is really more of a question from what I've been able to determine. I realize this is all preliminary, but from what I can see, there seems to be only one entrance and exit to this area of over 800 units, which is going to be Promenade Parkway, which to those of us that live on this side of town is affectionately known as the cut behind Walmart. And that's going to be the main entrance. And then just north of that is going to be, there's a traffic light to get into Walmart, and then south of that is going to be the roundabout or the circular drive, because they're closing the one entrance out of Stone Crossing. So that just seems to me to be a lot of stuff going on in a very short area. I don't have any problem with 800 units being built there, but how they're going to get cars in and out of there on Concord, which is getting busier by the day. I would just like some thought to go into that. Would ask that some real thought go into how they're going to be moving vehicles on a very busy stretch of road that's only going to get busier as all of these units get built out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Rebuttal.
So it's my understanding that the Concord Road corridor has been master planned, and specifically the intersection at Promenade Parkway. It's my understand, I mean, I can't say this with certainty, but it's my understanding that there's a planned traffic signal improvement installation at that intersection. As far as traffic being generated in and out of the at the entrance, Promenade Parkway will have a right turn lane and a through lane and a left turn lane. As far as getting into the subdivision, there will be a dedicated left turn lane from northbound or southbound Concord Road into the subdivision, and then a dedicated right turn lane for northbound traffic to get into the subdivision. So all of that engineering analysis is being performed partly privately by the developer, and then also in the master planning process for the Concord Road improvements.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we have two ballots. The first one would be for variance number 1, and that was for a variance to Concord Road that was approved by the Lafayette City Board of Works. And then the second ballot is for conditional approval.
There's a bond on it.
I know.
It is a bond.
They did, thank you. I didn't hear it. 'Thank you.
Oh, gotcha.
She's good, isn't she?
So you're only good.
Thirteen ballots cast, all for conditional approval and all with approved bonding, or rather, all with approved variance ballot.
Very good, thank you, David.
I
Yes.
move to hear and vote on Z 2875, Landmark Properties, Inc., the levy redevelopment PD, CBW, and PDMX to PDMX.
A second.
Thank you. Ryan?
Okay. Also, we have an update on our rezoning cases. Z2894 and Z2896 were deficient in their paperwork, so they'll be continued a month. So that's Z2894 Munoz and Z2896 Kittle.
Okay, thank you.
Cannot be heard tonight.
Okay, we'll continue those here sometime.
Correct. Yeah, they would continue 1 month.
Thank you.
So, okay. All right, on to this case. Well, we, back in West Lafayette, this is a what I like to call the kind of the first installment of the transformation of the levee riverfront neighborhood, which was called out in the West Lafayette Downtown Plan to try to reimagine the space that has developed more in a suburban fashion than the urban street grids in Chauncey and downtown Lafayette. This oddball piece developed in a very suburban fashion outside of that. So the plan called for introducing and actually just extending the street grid into this space, and this project is delivering on that first installment of it. So let me go through it here. So the site is a little over 5 acres. As you can see, it takes in the Bruno's restaurant, Puccini's, the motel, and then the 2 restaurants to the north, and the flower shop down in the southern part as well. It also takes in a portion of the kind of the stub end of Brown Street, of city right-of-way there. That, of course, was cut off from River Road some years ago. So now it's essentially just kind of a driveway. So the preliminary, this is a very complicated project. It's 2 buildings on 2 different sites. It's building a new street, it's vacating an old one, it's relocating utilities. It's going to be a big deal. It's introducing a 20,000 square foot park. There's a lot going on here. But this plat sort of shows the areas of vacation, of areas, the public rights of way that would be vacated. INDOT is also been engaged in this because of their right-of-way rights, and so this is the site that is being consolidated. Howard Avenue is essentially going to be removed and essentially realigned so that it's no longer coming in at this angle that it currently is in, and so the 9 Irish property is not part of this petition, and so one thing that would happen as a result of this is essentially they're going to get more parking. So because the street is, Howard Avenue is no longer going to be cutting through, it's going to be pulled off to the northeast, which you'll see in a second. So here's the site plan. 2 buildings, both mixed use, over 21,000 square feet of ground floor retail space. Between the 2 buildings, there's 590 apartment units with about 1,300 beds. And then both projects have their own dedicated structured parking garages that are internal to the buildings. There is no subterranean parking here, which is to respect the 500-year floodplain issues that were called out in the West Lafayette Downtown Plan. So there's no basements. And as you can see, the Brown Street would then essentially come to an end at this point with the new street. Howard Avenue would essentially be realigned as a new east-west road that would then stub at the current terminus of the petition's rezone area. And then the new north-south street would then bisect this area, creating 2 new city blocks. And then the 9 Irish property would obviously stand to benefit from getting more land for parking, and then the rest of it goes to the project. And then in the southern part of the project is a 20,000 square foot park space that was identified in the West Lafayette Downtown Plan. Through our project negotiations, we've been able to achieve this space. It will come in as essentially a public access park. It will be privately owned and maintained by the owner, but there will be a public access easement over it, so the public has rights to enter the space without trespassing. So, the retail spots on the ground floor, the buildings are labeled Building A and B. Building A is at the corner of River and State and Brown, and then Building B is at the corner of Brown and New Street. The bulk of the retail is in Building A, limited to the corner here and wrapping around River Road, and then within the rest of the footprint on the southern leg of it And then sandwiched between them is the residential lobby, which will have its own amenities. And then Building B, Building A is being sort of labeled the student apartment building. Building B is considered the market rate building. It's designed differently. It's not furnished. It'll likely have more appeal for other groups, including students, but not exclusively. For example, the Wabash Landing project is, last check, 25-30% student, and everybody else is just other mixed groups, young professionals, retirees, you name it. So Building B's retail footprint is also on the southern end of the building. It's residential lobbies here on the corner. And it's in Building B where we're trying something experimental. The building will be designed for essentially the fairly high roof retail ground floor, but it will have the option, working with the administrative officer of West Lafayette, to deliver what were live-work units. We're calling an older form where people lived above their store and they could easily just walk downstairs and operate their shop. So planned developments are good places to do experimental things, and this is something that we've been interested in trying to do for a while, thinking that there might be some utility to the use. And essentially it allows the business owner to live in his shop, his or her shop. And the terms are in the narrative of the project, essentially require that the business owner essentially maintain a presence there. They are the lessee and their family. And then they, of course, operate the business. This obviously helps young entrepreneurs because they're only paying one rent. And the way that these are going to be designed presently, although there's some flexibility, is that they would essentially live above, and then there'd be like a spiral staircase that takes you up and down. And then per fire code, there'll probably have to be a door, probably off that second floor, but we'll deal with that. West Lafayette Fire will be all on top of that. But the levels essentially correspond with the garage level, so there should be plenty of access there. So we're excited about bringing this potential new use. And if it's successful, we're certainly interested in possibly bringing it into the zoning ordinance as an alternative use allowed in some zoning districts. So this is a street section view of the new street. It'll get a name later after we take it through the 911 process. But Building A, its frontage along the new street actually has walkout townhouse units. So if you recall the Campus Edge project on Pierce Street, it has those. And we have several projects now that have these ground floor walkout units. And so this one is going to be delivering a similar sort of unit type. And then this is Brown Street. A lot of care has gone into this new intersection with New Street and Brown Street. We know that the Starbucks drive-through is incredibly popular. It's an old grandfather drive-through. They can't expand it. And so much care has gone in to make sure that the circulation is adequate and that emergency services feels comfortable being able to get in and out of here, as well as accommodating deliveries and everything else. So here's some shots of the project. Building A has this rounded corner element, sort of imitating a little bit what River Market did on the other side and hopefully improving it. And then Building B is, kind of tucked a little bit further back, but it also will have a presence there, viewing from State Street. And then here's some other perspective shots. Let's see. So again, the corner park space is going to be sort of a public access park as opposed to a true public park owned and maintained by the city. And its design is fairly fleshed out in the preliminary plans, but sort of subject to final approval at the final detailed plan stage. It's meant to be sort of a bookend of the Brown Street embankment. Wabash River Enhancement Corporation has had plans for a long time to have a new pedestrian bridge at Brown Street connecting to the current bridge embankment across the river into Lafayette, over the tracks, and landing somewhere in Charlie Dye's parking lot. And so with that possible project in the works, we wanted to have another park element further down Brown Street that attracted your eye and essentially led you up the hill. So this space will certainly achieve that, as well as providing outdoor dining for the retail spots as well. So again, this project, as we see in our report, really captures multiple policy elements out of the West Lafayette Downtown Plan. And we've been working with the developer for, goodness, 2+ years on this effort. And this has gone through many, many stages and different phases and so forth, but we're delighted to bring this final version to you for approval. So we are recommending conditional approval. The conditions are all fairly standard for plan developments, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner? Thank you.
Good evening, Kevin Riley with Riley, Teeter and Schreier, representing the petitioners. Appreciate the excellent summary that Ryan gave. Also would be remiss if I didn't thank Ryan and area plan staff and also city staff. So Aaron, Chad, Jen, Bryce, Ben, and I'm certain others, they have dedicated a lot of time and energy to helping us bring this forward, and we think it's going to be, it's an exciting project. We think it's going to be a tremendous asset for the community. We think it is appropriate for this site, and so we are requesting your recommendation of approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this project? We have one.
Good evening, Erin Easter, Director of Development for the City of West Lafayette. I certainly think that many members of this presentation so far have explained both the importance and the support of this project, and I want to reiterate our excitement and also our thanks to APC staff and the developer, who's right behind me, the developer and all of their teams in being patient with us and being creative with us to find a project that we think will really suit the downtown master plan and the City of West Lafayette. So thank you, and we ask for your support.
Thank you, Aaron. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Any other comments, Kevin? Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Looks like a good project. We have a yellow ballot. Rentals. Okay. Vicki, did you get those continuous numbers? Okay. Should be right there. When do you want to do that? At the end? I just don't want to forget.
Or as they come. I'll catch
Oh, when they
you.
come.
I'll
Okay.
catch you.
Thank you very much. Okay, when they come up. Good plan, thank you.
We have a unanimous ballot recommending approval.
Thank you, Ryan. Vicki?
I move to hear and vote on Z 2887 Gaia Rentals Incorporated NB to GB.
A second.
We have a motion, a second. Staff, please.
Good evening, Amanda Esposito, APC. This rezone petition was heard previously just a little over a year ago at its April 20th, 22 meeting, at which time the APC recommended a denial. It then went on to the Lafayette City Council and also was denied ultimately by the City Council. The petitioner has filed the exact same petition. This area is along Schuyler Avenue in Lafayette. You can see here that this area of Schuyler is heavily commercial activity. The St. Lawrence McAllister Neighborhood Land Use Plan, adopted plan from 2006, did recommend this area south of Schuyler to have a less intense commercial use. At the time, it was actually Zone GB, and as a result of that land use plan, which, as you know, gets a lot of public input, it was recommended to rezone it to NB to kind of protect the residential uses that are south of Schuyler here. To the north of Schuyler, you have a lot more of intense general business type uses with the industrial area to the northwest there. So we recommended denial last year. Nothing has changed as far as we know from the petitioner. There is no proposed user, but what we have heard is that they wish to possibly lease it to an auto detailing, car sales, repair maybe. And we just believe that the size of this lot, the shape of it, as well as the plan, the adopted plan recommendation, just leads this to another recommendation of denial. I am happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you, Amanda. Petitioner or their representative?
Good evening. It's nice to be back. I learned recently that young lawyers get vacations. Didn't work that way a long time ago. I represent the Gator family. This is a family request. This family's been around a long time doing business here in the community. And indeed, they bought this building, which was a not too pleasant purchase. Needed, I think, 2 roofs and some stuff like that, but if you drove by the site, the building on the outside has been cleaned up pretty well. They have done a pretty good job of getting it spruced up so that it might be useful. They have not done anything on the inside because of this pending question about what the use might be. They had permits and everything from the city to proceed on this basis here, but city people looked at this and started to talk to the client about what was going to go in there, and we finally hit on this problem of what they needed to do and what they could not find tenants to do was to take the NB zone, that it was going to have to be a GB zone. So now the interesting thing about this is if you look at that map on the Schuyler Avenue, from about, I would say, 15th and Schuyler, maybe, north to 19th and 20th Street, it is at best a mixed group of uses. There are bars, there are manufacturing uses, there are parking lots, there's a crematorium, there's a transmission operation there, there are some other businesses that are new to the area, the Antique Candle Company, the current bowling alley is no longer a bowling alley, and there are then 2 empty buildings. This building that we're talking about here and the old drugstore that's at 18th and Schuyler. Now, I don't know what the problem is with the drugstore, but they got it all boarded up. But in a neighborhood like this, boarded up buildings don't do any good for anybody either. So we have a potential ability to bring this building back to utility and usefulness. When you read the fine print, you discover something about this kind of building. This building was originally built in a GB zone, and we changed that GB zone several years ago to accommodate the neighborhood plan. But what we're really asking you to do tonight here is not to do something that is outrageous. We're asking you just to put us back like we were. Now, I have members of the family here with me, and they're very interested in doing something with this. The outside of the building is in very good shape, unless the vandals have painted on it since last night, and we're having that kind of problem. But it's a 1958 building, and we think that the insides, if we can get it rebuilt to use as a GB, can make this thing a viable property for this area and a viable property for the economic needs of the community. Interestingly enough, if you look at that aerial photograph, not this one, but the color one that's there are interesting GB sites around. There's one over on Monon Avenue and that indeed is a GB use. We are immediately across the street from the huge GB zone, so we are not intruding in anything. Now, the back part of us does go to the R1U, and the interesting thing is we are not intruding there because the piece of property immediately adjacent to us, as I recall, is owned by the Gaeta family too. So if we're going to intrude, it'd be against one of our own units, not likely. The NBU and the NB here that we are surrounded by are a series of, well, from us old-timers, we remember when it was called Lefty's Tavern. And on the other end, there is a store, a community, just a little neighborhood grocery area, one of those kinds of businesses that have popped up everywhere. What we're just asking you to do here is give us the opportunity to use this as a GB site. You let us use it as a GB site because that's what it was at one point. That's what it was when this filling station was built there and this building is staying there. The size of this lot is small, and that will, with the use of the people at the city engineer's office, control the kind of use that goes there. So there's kind of built into this a self-policing kind of system. In any event, we would like to have the city receive a recommendation to put this piece of property back to general business like it was in its earlier days, and let the Gaeta family fix it up like they've started and turn it into a piece of economic activity for the community. And if it were GB, it would be immediately like the units across the street. Brett Knocker's transmission, for some of you people who are as old as I am, and those kinds of business, parking lots for trucks and those kinds of things. So we're not going to do anything here on this small lot that would upset the apple cart. Please tell the city council that you recommend a rezoning to GB. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this? Anyone wishing to speak against this? Any other comments, Joe? Questions from the board? Comments from the board?
Yes.
Microphone.
I remember this. As this came before the city council last time, I think that we had asked if there maybe be some commitments attached to this, and there was no agreement. And as the neighbors presented to the council, first of all, they didn't want to see another car lot, and they didn't want to see another repair because they figured the hours of an evening would bother them. So the neighborhood at that time, now, again, this is a different time, really opposed this, and the size of the lot also made a difference too. So as a city council member, a member of the APC, I'm not too sure the city will, again, go along with this. So it's just my opinion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Question for Mr. Brummelberg. Is this a vacant property now?
No, there's a building on it, Chief. Let me get a picture here and show you.
I understand a building on it, but is it a business currently?
No, there's nothing going on here.
And how long has it been vacant? Or
At least 2 to 3 years vacant.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot. Oh, thank you very much. We have two up here.
Oh.
Continued. Next case. Oh, got one more. I see it in between. We got to get that. Sorry. Yeah, we got one case first, yeah.
Next meeting.
Yeah.
Next presentation.
We have six votes in favor and 7 votes against, for a total of 13 ballots.
Okay, so that case will be heard again next month. Thank you. 2893, Vicki.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2893, the fourth offset LLC, R2U to NBU.
I second.
Staff, please.
Hi, I'm Austin Hammerly. The petitioner is requesting a rezone of 1300 Howell Street in the Lincoln neighborhood of Lafayette from R2U to NBU. They're doing this to legalize their existing building and uses, so it's basically an older commercial storefront on the bottom with residential units on top and in the back. There's R2U zoning we can see to the north and east and west, and we have a little bit of NBU and NB less than a block away. Staff is recommending approval because it's really fitting with the character of the neighborhood, the building that was there. This area used to have a lot of corner stores like this with units on top. And the R2U zoning that's currently there is kind of a departure away from kind of the development pattern that this neighborhood had from the beginning. And with it being so close to NBU and NB zoning already, staff can support this request. I'm here for any questions, if anyone has any.
Very good, thank you. Petitioner.
Good evening, Kevin Riley with Riley, Teeter and Schreier, representing the petitioner. Petitioner is the owner of the property at 1300 Howell Street. As mentioned, we're requesting a rezone from R2U to NBU. As mentioned, there are other NBU zones in the area. The purpose of this rezone is to allow for a commercial use on the first floor, along with residential use either behind or above the commercial space. The petitioner is the owner of 5 other buildings in the neighborhood. 5 buildings in the neighborhood, 1 commercial and the others are residential. So petitioner is committed to seeing this neighborhood thrive and seeing it revitalized, and we think this is a good step. We request your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor of this project? Anyone wish to speak against this project? Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot.
We have 13 votes in favor.
Very good, thank you. I think we have a continuance. Vicki, please.
I move to continue Z 2894, Jose L. Munoz, MRU to NBU to the July 2023 meeting.
A second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2895, Moon 26E LLC, AW to A.
I second.
Hello again. The property in this request is out on the east side of our county, just south of State Road 26 and east of the intersection with 900 East. The zoning out here, as you can see, is pretty simple, straightforward. South of 26, it's all AW, which is agricultural wooded, which means it's farmed, and it usually has some kind of wooded and hilly slopes which cannot be developed or farmed on. To the north is all agricultural zoning. Can you advance me? Thanks. The property in this request is mostly farmed, as you can see from the aerial here. A small portion of it is being used by a trucking company. From what I understand from the petitioners, they've been using this for the trucking company for about 5 years. What happens here is employees enter the site in their personal vehicles, they park, and then they leave in a company vehicle to go to a quarry where they pick up aggregate, whatever, for a construction site. So no actual work is being done on this property. Now, the reason for this rezone request, it's the first step in a two-step process. If this rezone is successful, they will be applying for a special exception from the ABZA later, because the trucking company use can only be done in an A zone with a special exception. So that is the purpose of this rezone request today. You can't do the trucking company use in an AW zone. You have to have the A zone for that. All right. So anything else about this property? As I said, most of the property is still being used agriculturally. The adopted land use plan for this area calls for either open areas or agricultural uses. We can support this because it is still being used, the majority of it agriculturally. There's not much of a difference between the AW and the A, except for the presence of those wooded slopes. So we are in favor of this rezone request, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner, please.
Ryan Munden with Reiling, Teeter, and Schreier here on behalf of the petitioner, Moon 26E LLC. Petitioner is owned by Dr. Chris Moon and his wife, Dawn. Dr. Moon and Aaron Kane with GCI Trucking are here tonight with me to help answer any questions you may have. With respect to the trucking operation that exists currently on site, as Amanda indicated, we're essentially just parking trucks. It varies depending on the time of year, but typically it's approximately 10 to 15 trucks, maybe more, maybe less, and then one employee on site who's a dispatcher. Typical business hours, 8 to 5, they're not operating around the clock, so that's what's going on the property. We do have a letter in support from the Mullers who live directly to the north there in that little carve-out, which we provided to APC. We concur with staff's report and recommendation. We respectfully request your recommendation of approval. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this?
Ed Garrison, 275 South 990 East, approximately 1 mile from this property. Yeah, the little hand was on it earlier, but I drive this route every day. I see them coming in and out quite often. I am in support of this rezone. I'm sure there's more to come, and I would like to request that they do bring it up to proper NDOT standards and everything else. I know there is tracking that comes in and out from the vehicles going in and out, and other issues as well. But I'm glad to hear that they are working with the older couple that's directly in front of them, have built the berm and everything else, so I am in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against the petition? Any rebut on that?
Not so much rebuttal, but we are working with the County Highway Department on the driveway improvements, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ryan. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot. Very good, thank you. I'm sure Vicki's got it. She's got it. Thank you.
Unanimous ballot recommending approval.
Very good, thank you, Ryan. I think we can continue the next case. Vicki?
I move to continue Z 2896 Jerry Kittle in care of Innovative Engineering and Consulting, Inc., GB to I3 to the July 2023 meeting.
A second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Now we're ready for the approval of the,
Administrative matters.
Administrative matters, thank you. Is that next?
Is that
Yes.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Any administrative matters?
We have none.
Thank you. Approval of the July Executive Committee agenda.
I move that the following requests for subdivision be placed on the July 5th, 2023 Area Plan Commission Executive Committee agenda at petitioner's request, placement thereon being without reference to compliance or noncompliance with the adopted subdivision ordinance. S. 5136 Food Finders Fresh Market, minor sketch.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Determination of variances.
I move that the following requests for variance from the Unified Zoning Ordinance are not requests for use variance prohibited from consideration by ordinance and statute. BZA 2108 Series Solution Cooperative, Inc., BZA 2110 Buckingham Properties, LLC, and BZA 2111 Tomish Developers, LLC.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Director's report.
Thank you. The director's report was distributed yesterday. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Citizens' comments or grievances? Very good. We have none.
I make the move to adjourn.
Okay. Adjourn. Thank you, guys.
We made it under 2 hours.
Under two.
It was.
Isn't it interesting, the biggest deal we have.
Your statement is appropriate. Give us some commitments we'll consider it.
That's a big deal.
It's the big deal.
I like your cadence. Yeah. Knocking those things out.
I'm going to open my legal shop there and have a spiral staircase.
I thought
When my wife gets tired of me pushing out.
I thought the 800
So, that's pretty close.